Again, I'm going to be talking about three major setback that we have in Nigeria and Africa at large. One is poor management, and the second is lack of accountability, and the third is poor structure. Over here in Africa, we lack accountability. If something is being entrusted to us, we don't account for it, and that sometimes lead to poor management. And the foundation is we don't have good structure as well. I'll give an example. Sometimes I see government blaming the people and the people blaming the government. Sometimes government says, "Oh, people should make sacrifice," things are tight and all that, but the government end up, spending money unaccountable, and spending the money on things that actually don't really matter, and the people, end up suffering for it as well, and that causes a lot of, problem in the economy. And also, I see people in their individual homes, how they manage, their resources. Sometimes it's not the amount that you receive that is making you poor, but the way you manage the resources you already have. There's a saying that says, "He that is faithful in little will be faithful in much." And there's a saying that says that God can never multiply what you cannot manage. So, poor management is a very big problem to us because we lack accountability. Sometimes, when you don't account for things, you really end up, abusing it. And anything you don't manage properly, you end up losing it. Sometimes we point fingers at the external factor, which I know is part of it, but we end up not looking into the internal factor, which is us pointing finger outside while you don't see your blind spot. So these are areas we need to look at. The way we run our home, the way we manage, our home, plays a big role on how we run government before imposition of government as well. So because I see sometimes in Africa, people, will pay attention to things that they don't need rather than, paying attention to the things they actually need. We spend money, you see someone who cannot afford a luxurious wedding, because you want to, keep up with the Joneses of the society and, being validated externally. We end up, even going as far as, borrowing money, going as far as begging for money, doing anything just to keep up with that lifestyle that we cannot sustain. It's been a very big problem. Management, poor management, lack of accountability. It's something that is deeply rooted in us, and I see that as what we need to really work on if we need to grow, our economy. No matter how much you pour water in the basket, it doesn't stay because there's leakage. There are loopholes that we need to cover up, and that we need to take ownership of our resources and take responsibility of what we are assigned to. We have to steward what is given to us before asking for more. Nigeria is a great country. We're blessed with natural resources and all that. But the problem, like I mentioned, is we don't manage what is being given to us. And we're continually blaming people, blaming other factors for our setback. But, we don't build structure that will sustain us for a longer time. We don't give account of anything that is assigned to us. We don't manage, we don't steward anything that is given to us. We live life in the moment. We don't look at life from the futuristic perspective. crazy things happen sometimes, when you see people, not planning towards their future. And when that time comes, they would start, begging for money. They want people to pity them. They guilt trip people, trying to make people responsible for their problem instead of them owning to their responsibility, putting the blame on themselves. They rather put the blame on other people and giving power to other people instead of them taking responsibility or ownership of their life. So these are areas we need to really look into as Africans. We need to learn how to be faithful in little, because if we're not faithful in little, we cannot be faithful in much. Thank you very much, and I hope to talk to you in my next video. Have a wonderful Sunday. Bye for now.